What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Happy Monday. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We are super grateful for all of you, and we're excited to cover tonight's topic on something that I believe is going to be, it was extremely impactful for me going into the preparation of this. Mike and I had a conversation. So the topic of tonight was going to be on giving up control. Okay, that was going to be the topic, just giving up control. And then we had a conversation today and we realized, why isn't the topic on taking more responsibility? Because that's just as important as well. So we figured, what a great opportunity to talk about both and blend both in this call. Okay, so by the way, if you're joining us for the first time, I think there is some new people here. We are the Wave Makers community. We're dedicated to creating positive waves of change for ourselves, our community, and the world. And my name is Nick Teixeira. I'm super excited to be one of the hosts tonight. And so I'm going to go right in. I have some notes. If I keep looking down, that's why, guys. And hopefully you also have some pen and paper to write down some things that hopefully stand out to you. By the way, everything that we are covering are things that we are going through, that we're learning from, and that we're embodying into our lives as well. So if you take some value from this, that is amazing. And I also encourage you guys to put it to the test yourself, right? Take everything we say, not only us, but everyone in general, with a grain of salt, and put it through your own mental filter and figure out if it's something that you can and should apply into your life or not. Okay, so with that being said, I'm gonna dive right in. Again, if you are taking notes, the topic is on taking responsibility while giving up control. Okay, so here's a picture. If you guys want to write it down in your paper so you can follow everything that I'm going to say. I'm going to write something, or you guys can write something on the left side, which says discipline. That's one side of the conversation. Taking responsibility, being disciplined. And then on the right side, surrender. Discipline and surrender. And at the very end of this call, I'm going to give you a word that is at the very middle of that. Okay? The very middle, that's what can bring both of them together, which is the goal, by the way. If we go too far left, drop a 3 in the chat if you guys agree with me. If we become way too disciplined all the time and we have no ability to surrender, no ability to give up control, and we're just disciplined, we will we will suffer in life, okay? We will suffer in life, I promise you that, okay? We may hit a lot of our goals, okay? See, I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs here. We may hit a lot of our goals, but we will also suffer in that process because the other side is surrender. Now, and I'll drop a 22 in the chat if you guys can relate with me here. If we surrender too much to the point of taking no responsibility for anything that happens in our lives because, I'm just a vessel. And trust me, we are vessels. We are vessels. We have Sunday calls. We talk about that all the time. So important to understand that we're spiritual beings living in a physical world, but at the same time, there's a middle point. It's the giving up control and surrender, and the being disciplined with ourselves and taking responsibility for what happens in our lives as well, right? So I'm going to give you guys a simple list that is just there to encourage you guys to do some thinking. That's why we're here, right? It's to get the wheels turning in our lives. And hopefully you're going to find some that you can relate with. And if you cannot relate, just cross it off after you write it down, okay? And then put yours in there. So here are a few things that we can take control of and take responsibility and take control of, okay? I can take responsibility of my wins. Write that down. I can take responsibility of my wins, my failures and losses, and shortcomings, 100%. And I'm going to add there and say, we should 100% take responsibility of our failures. It's easy to say, yeah, I won, look at what I did. But then when it's, I failed. I actually did a really bad job. And use that as fuel to get better, right? Not to beat ourselves over it, but to get better. So it's okay to take responsibility of our failures, our wins, taking responsibility of our emotions. How about that? I can take responsibility of my emotions. Ownership of our shortcomings are so important. Agree, Louisa, 100%. So I can take responsibility of my own emotions. I don't know if you guys can relate with me. This is one that I struggled with the majority of my life. I actually struggled with this specifically, the mindset that used to tell me that my emotions were connected and rely upon someone else's actions or thoughts about me. I choose my emotions. That is my responsibility. If I get angry at you for telling something to me, that is not your fault. That is my fault. I allowed myself to get upset, right? So let's keep it going. What are some other things that we can, and I believe we should take responsibility of and be aware of this? Our own happiness. We can and should take responsibility of our own happiness. No one else is responsible for your happiness but you. You guys agree with me? Give me a thumbs up if you got your camera on. Awesome. Cool, guys. Thank you for the participation. So we can take responsibility of our peace, of our discipline as well, of our seriousness, of our faith. We can take responsibility of our faith. 100%. I choose to grow my faith. It won't just be all given to us. We must choose to do that. I can take responsibility of being reliant on myself. And what I mean by that is this. Especially, I'm speaking to us entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs. To rely on someone else for our success in business is not ideal at all. It is great to have coaches. It is great to have mentors. It is great to have guidance systems, but we are not to give our power and responsibility into someone else's hands. Someone else, they might not be able to help you. Now what? Are you done? No. Take responsibility of your ability to go find the answers yourself. Great thing to take responsibility of as an entrepreneur, especially, right? You guys with me? You guys agree? This is huge right here. Check this out. If you are in business, if you are in sales, and all of us are in sales, by the way, in some way, form, one way, shape, or form, or another. We can take responsibility of our follow-up. We can take responsibility of our follow-up. That's it. But that we can. So it is our job to do that. And if we're not doing that as entrepreneurs and as business people and as salespeople, we are not doing our jobs. Okay? And here's the last one, or the last two. We can take responsibility of our 24 hours. I can take responsibility of my 24 hours. I must take responsibility of my 24 hours of today, not tomorrow. Tomorrow hasn't been given to me yet, but today I can. And the last one, the most important one right here. You ready? If you're taking notes, write this down. If you haven't taken notes, write this one down and circle it and star it afterwards. I can take responsibility of my thoughts. The most important one, the most valuable one. You can forget all. If you don't have this one, forget all the other ones. It won't matter. And this is such an exciting topic, and we're just covering the surface, right? Taking responsibility of our own thoughts. I had my mentor, and I'm gonna pass this on to you guys. One of my coaches, I just starting a private coaching this past week, and he asked me, Nick, how do you think? And I said, I didn't have this plan. I just want to share this with you guys. This is going to be valuable for you as well. And I said, I really thought about it. And I said, either thoughts come to me or I begin to focus on something and then I think. And he just looked at me and he shook his head and he said, interesting. See, if we are just allowing thoughts to come to us, which that used to be me, by the way, most of my life, still is subconsciously, we are not taking responsibility. I wasn't taking responsibility of my own thoughts. So let's go to the other side of the spectrum, right? Here are some things that we can and should give up some control of. Other people's thoughts about you. You can't help what people think about you. We cannot help change. We can't change what someone thinks about us. That is their choice. So we can give up that control. We can give up the control of other people's criticism. We can't force someone to give us good feedback or negative feedback. We can give that up. We can give up the control of the need to always be right. Dude, this one right here, the moment that we're able to drop a 33, if you guys can relate with me, the moment that you are able to walk away from a conversation without needing to be right, your peace level just increases instantly. You don't need their approval. You're giving up the control of having someone else's approval about you or what you're saying. So good. I'm almost done, guys. Here are some other things just to get our wheels turning. How about giving up control of fear? How about that? Give up the control of fear. Let it go. Let the fear go. Subconsciously, I take on fear and I hold it. And I'm choosing to think about fear. I'm choosing to think about what could go wrong. How about giving up the control of fear? That is not in my list of responsibilities. I am not going to be fearful. It's a choice. A lot of times we subconsciously choose to be fearful. I'm talking about myself. Maybe you guys can relate. Other people's expectations of you. Giving up control of other people's expectations of you. Can't help with that. We can't do a thing about it. Other people's emotions. The dependability on others. Giving up control of having dependability on others. Being dependable on other people. A very simple conversation is about business, right? We can look at that clearly. If we are dependent on someone else for our success in business, you will be limited. Right off the bat, you have a lid. No one else can help build your business. You start that. You need to start it. Then others can help, right? Giving up control of being a people pleaser. Oh man, this one, I'm hitting myself in the gut on this one. I'm a Pisces. I'm gonna blame it on that. I want everyone to like me. That's the internal self-conscious Nick wants everyone to like me. I can't help that. I cannot help that. I can't make sure that everyone likes me unless I'm not doing anything worthwhile. That's the true conversation. Unless I'm not really living boldly in who I am, then if I'm not doing that, maybe everyone's gonna like me. And here's the last one: giving up control of people saying yes. See, you can take responsibility of the follow-up in your business. You can't take control of the people saying yes all the time. You can't do that. And here is actually the last one that I have: giving up control of the days ahead. I had a conversation with Mike, and this is the last point that I have. Focusing too much and worrying too much about tomorrow, worrying too much about the future. The Bible says today has enough troubles of its own. So focus on today. That's what you can control, the 24 hours that have been given to you. Tomorrow, when tomorrow comes, you focus on tomorrow. Yes, have goals. Yes, have plans for the future, but don't live there. Don't live there. Give that control, okay? Discipline. Here's a couple of quotes from the Bible for those of us that see the value in reading the Bible. And if you don't, it's all good. But listen to this. This is still powerful. About discipline. Here's what the Bible says. Proverbs 25:28 says, a man without self-control is like a city broken into and left without walls. Proverbs 25:28, a man without self-control is like a city broken into and left without walls. So we need discipline, right? That's what that's saying. You need to be disciplined. You need to want to have self-control, which starts by taking responsibility of your thoughts and choosing to become a person with higher self-control. And here's on the other side of the spectrum, the surrender part. It's one verse that I personally love. Psalm 46:10 says, be still and know that I am God. Okay. To me, what that says, surrender. I am God. I'm greater than you. You don't have to have all the answers at all times for your life, because there's a greater power and source that's above you. And that, to me, hits my soul, right? And here's the middle word that I want you guys to write down. The word between discipline and surrender, flow. That word, and there's a lot of meanings, right? We're not going to go into that right now, but it's having the desire and the seriousness to have discipline in your life, doing what you said you were going to do long before the feeling of doing it has left you, and having the desired outcomes and the daily activities to go after those desired outcomes. And at the same time, allowing the natural time of things to happen. See, you can't force you can't plant a seed today and force the tree to grow tomorrow. It's not going to work. You can water all you want. You're going to kill the seed. There's still a timing factor that in a phase that goes into things, which is where the surrender comes in. Knowing that everything will work itself out at the right time. Okay. Too much of either one will bring a lot of suffering in life. Let's find that flow. And that's my goal here. Hopefully you will ponder on this topic of finding that flow for yourself, of discipline and surrender, taking responsibility and giving control at the same time. Okay. Drop a 33 in the chat. That's my favorite number. If you gain something of value, if you got you thinking, that's the goal. I love you guys. God bless you. Thank you for joining us. My brother, Mike Batanti, is going to continue on something that I'm excited to take some notes on as well. That being said, Michael Batanti, my brother, I love you, man. Grateful for you.
I love you too, big guy. I love you too. I appreciate it. So much value there. I learned so much from you, man. And just the concept of taking notes, I learned that from you, and it just sticks, right? It's not about what we remember. It's what we can't forget. And you forget so much when you just don't write it down. All it takes sometimes is you write it down one time, and it starts to resonate in your head. But I appreciate that, man. I'm going to piggyback off of you. And for me, I love this process. I love teaching. I learn more from teaching than I do from being taught. And it's a beautiful thing when I start to dive into the topics that we're talking about. There are a couple things that I'm getting ready to drop on you that might change your life. The second that I dug into this information, I came across at least 3 topics, some of them from my own creativity and some of them from what I was researching. And it's just the 2 millimeter shift. So plug in, guys. Give me 15 minutes, and I'm going to dish this information, and maybe it'll change your life, right? And that's what I'm here. I'm here to reach one person with one concept, and I did my job. But when I'm looking at the topic, taking responsibility while giving up control, for me, I like to look for a root. That's such a broad topic. I have 15 minutes to stand and deliver. What is a root word that I can grab a hold of and I can begin? And for me, this word just stuck out in big, shiny letters in my head, and it was commitment. That word right there. When I look at the things that I need to take responsibility for and the things that are absolutely trapping me because I can't give up control, it all comes down to the form of commitment and my level of commitment, right? So let's talk about it. In our personal development, right? In these last couple weeks of going through personal development as a family, you know, we're identifying our goals. What are we after? We're learning how to communicate. We're learning how to be honest and transparent with ourselves about what we're after. Get some self-security in our own skin. And that is a lifelong process. But once you identify what you're about, it is very important to pay attention to what we commit to and the level at which we commit to those things. And I want you to ask these couple questions. What am I actually signing up for? And as entrepreneurs, you'll begin to find out, here's what I'm learning. The more success I'm achieving and the bigger I'm getting, the more opportunities are getting thrown at me on a daily basis. And if I don't have discipline, I'm like, ooh, that sounds good. Oh, that sounds good. Ooh, this, yes, throw me in. And then all of a sudden, I'm spread astronomically thin and I can't give up control. And I definitely am struggling to take responsibility over the big projects because I'm spread so thin. There's only 24 hours in the day. So being able to pay attention to that commitment, what am I actually signing up for here? And when you begin to become a critical thinker ahead of saying yes, ahead of any form of commitment, I'm going to do a decent level of due diligence and critical thinking. These are the questions I'm asking. What am I actually signing up for? Who is involved? I want to know, what am I signing up for? Who is involved? What is being asked of me in this project? You know, sometimes it's the people closest to us. We want to partake. We want to contribute. We want to help them. But like, man, how many times, drop a 1 in the chat if you have end up in a situation where you are like, man, I didn't sign up for this, where you ended up biting off way more than you could chew and you didn't sign up for what you're actually being asked of. You know why? Because that critical thinking and due diligence phase, what we would call mindfulness, that mindful stage pre-yes never took place. It never took place. Do you know why it never took place? Is because you are continuing to use a instead of the. You ready for this? You continue to run a play instead of the play. You continue to go through a process of how you handle it instead of the process of how I handle it. You go through a schedule instead of the schedule. And it makes a huge difference. The way I can compare it to my spiritual creatures on the call is the same way of living unintentionally, and you're opening up the doors to any and every spirit instead of being very intentional about the spirits that you open up your heart to, about the people that you open up your heart to, right? How can you trust the process if it's not the process? It's trust a process. What does that even mean? Do you know how many human minds have created millions of processes that lead people down rabbit holes? So that concept for me, it just really did a huge shift of how many times in my day and how many times in my week, in my month, and in my life am I so broad because it's a task instead of the task, right? It's a goal instead of the goal. It comes with specificity and it changes everything. Here's another beautiful concept, guys. And it comes with self-security and knowing the direction that you're in and you're on. My commitment levels are now from this day on going to be broken into 3 categories. You ready for this? This one put a huge smile on my heart, which forced a smile on my face. It's either an adventure, it's a season, or it's a marriage. I'm either looking at whatever I'm committing to like it's an adventure. Adventures, they're spontaneous. They're short term. They don't need to be unbelievably planned and prepped. They're exciting, right? But there's an end to it. It's not supposed to be forever. There's a season where I'm getting ready to go to veil for the season, which is going to require what? A little bit more preparation, a little bit more housing, a little bit more money, a little bit more focus. But still, it's a 4 or 5 month process. And then there's a marriage where we're in it. And once we're in it, we're in it. Right? And look at how often and how much attention goes into a marriage, pre-marriage, before you say yes, before you commit. So my question to you, and it starts with the little things, because as we all know, how you do one thing is how you do everything. Any and every commitment that is entering to your life, every single time that you have to say yes or say no, is it an adventure? Is it a season? Or is it a marriage? And these questions, guys, this A versus the, and an adventure, a season, a marriage, these very critical pre-decision actions that you can begin to learn how to take, they create a scenario where you're no longer over-committing. And when you talk to Michael Batanti about why I have a hard time taking responsibility for certain things and why I have a hard time giving up control of certain things, it usually is because I'm scrambled eggs and I'm so overcommitted and unscheduled and undisciplined. And that hectic environment, you're making very, very unstable decisions. And if you know me, you know my vibe of I would rather prep for the exam and go in and take the exam than not prep for the exam and go in and take the exam. I would rather fill out the entire outline and go to the study group and start 3 weeks early and go in super casual and get a 95 than the morning of you wake up, you're flipping through the chapters, trying to get the keywords before you vomit it out onto the exam. And these type of action steps that you can learn and you can do, I'm in the process of doing. Like some of this stuff, day one for me, about the question of, is this an adventure, a season, or a marriage? Because that is absolutely going to impact the way in which I approach it and the way in which I let it stress me out. If it's an adventure, I couldn't possibly let it stretch me out. It's supposed to be experienced. It's supposed to be enjoyed, right? If it's a season, I definitely need to place a little bit more focus. But then again, that season will end. A new season will come. If it's a marriage, you better believe that I'm going to give it as much attention as required because it's with me for life, right? And it comes from getting to know yourself a little bit. So just to recap before I close out with the most important quote that I could ever say to you in regards to this topic of conversation, right? In order for us to not overcommit, we need to learn how to walk ourselves through a decision-making process. That decision-making process, you need to stop saying a process and you need to develop your process. It is the process that Eric Brown has for when people bring Eric Brown new opportunities and he needs to make a decision if he's going to allocate funds and resources and time and energy to that project. The same thing with relationships. What type of relationship is coming in? Do I have the mental capacity and the training to take that step, the extra step, go the extra mile of before I commit, let me pray on it. And while I'm praying on it, I'm going through the process of vetting what I'm tying myself to, right? What am I tying myself to? What am I signing up for specifically? Who's involved? What are the variables? Are there going to be more people involved? Right? Have you ever said yes to a friend who was like, hey, do you want to come out? And you said yes. And because of the degree of separation between you and your friend and that friend and their friends, you end up exactly where you don't like to be. Have you ever been there? And usually it comes from lack of appropriate questions. Before I said, Louisa, I'm in, I didn't ask, where are we going? What type of people are we going? What type of party is it? Yeah, I would love to go to a party. What type of party is it? Right? Because I like to go to very specific types of parties at 29 years old. Right? And when you don't ask those questions, you subdue yourself. It's not nature. You subjected yourself to those degrees of separation. Right? And then being able to walk yourself through that 3-step process of analysis. Is this an adventure, a season, of marriage? And guys, for me, when I look at how to take responsibility while giving up control, it comes down to this quote right here: marry the process and divorce the result. I need to be very, very intentional about what the process is. It's not a process, it's the process. And I am married to my decision-making processes because every decision I make matters. Every single left and every single right, it matters. And I am in control. It's called free will. God gave us free will. But I need to divorce the result. Why? Because tomorrow's got enough problems. Today has enough problems, and tomorrow definitely has problems. So the present is where we stay, right? And that quote right there, Nikki calls it flow. My bridge between the two is to be able to marry the process and divorce the result. And it comes full circle. That word marriage, it's number 3 on, is it an adventure? Is it a season, or is it a marriage? Which one do you think gets the most critical thinking and the most due diligence and the most analysis? It's the marriage, right? You would say drop a 2 if you think that marriage gets the most mindfulness in making a decision of what you're going to commit yourself to. Marry the process, ladies and gentlemen, of how you exist, how you eat, how you pray, how you wake up, how you talk to other people, how you talk to yourself. This is the marriage that you focus on. And the result, divorce it. We don't believe in divorce as Christians. Rid of it. Get away of, toss it in the trash. Whatever terminology you would like to use for that concept of, I am all in on the decision-making process of yes and no. And then once I've said yes or no, it's out the door. Reminds me, Nick, of Alonzo. What if Nick asked his now mentor, he said, Alonzo, I love this one because it wasn't even me. This is a 2nd-degree story that I tell all the time. Nick said, Alonzo, what do I do if there's 2 great options? How do I decide between 2 great things that have benefits? And Alonzo's response was, Nick, what if there was no right or wrong decision? What if you just made a decision, and the second that you made that decision, it became the right decision? Right? And if you're not paying attention to the process, not a process, the process of how you make decisions, that right decision is going to be sketchy. We've all been there, and we might all be there again. But these are just some tips that might be able to help you along the way. So I love you guys. I appreciate your attention. For those of you, the hundreds of thousands, if not millions at this point, who are going to be watching this recording, we appreciate your time, right? For those who are live on the call, keep showing up, keep coming back for more, and we will see you on Friday. Peace and love.